first.
Very interesting about Blowout is that with times actually it got better acceptance by the audiences. You know, many times it happens with movies that when it's done, people don't see it as a revolutionary movie or something like that. You know but certain movies have this quality that by times, you know, it gets better, like wine, you know, when they're, you know, after 10 years, 20 years, some of the wines are becoming, you know, great. And this movie is becoming probably much more accepted today. And many directors like Tarantino or other directors who are really not only directors, but they are film buffs, and they study old movies and classics and all that, and they like to imitate sometimes, you know, certain movies. And Blowout is at that stage now that it has great audiences even today. Brian De Palma is a great director because he has great ideas, and the way he stages scenes, you know, it's really amazing that the camera is either moving all the time, and it's always a challenge, you know, the way he tells the story. He loves to see movies. I mean, he studies them, and he is great with the technique to how to tell a story brilliantly. And cinematographers like to work with visual directors because I think making movies that's it, you know, it has to be visual. I'm not interested, you know, to make more movies where the dialogue is the important element, you know. Yes, dialogue is necessary because people talk actually in real life, but they don't have to talk that much, you know. And I basically love very much the silent films, you know, because there the only way to tell the story was through visuals. And, you know, the good directors try to do that. My very first film with Brian De Palma was Obsession, which brought us together, you know, and I loved that movie. I loved the screenplay. And I think it was probably at that time, you know, Brian De Palma's best movie. Good actors, nice locations. Florence, my favorite in Italy, you know, and they're shooting in New Orleans, also a great location. And then it was a little time lapse, you know. After Obsession, I did some big movies, you know. One of them was Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of a Third Kind. And then with Michael Cimino, 2 movies, Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate. And then Brian De Palma came back to me and said that he was doing this movie, Blowout. Are you available? And then I made myself available. Basically, I was very lucky I was able to do that movie. We had fun, actually, when we were doing Blowout. Actually, we had a great crew, a bunch of actors, you know. Even Brian, actually, who is a person who doesn't really like to be very open to people. But even Brian had a good time, actually, on Blowout. Brian De Palma is a very meticulous movie maker. You know, he followed in the footsteps of Hitchcock, basically. You know, he loved Hitchcock movies, and many times he was even imitating, you know, his movies. I love the beginning of the movie. We had actually Garrett Brown, the inventor of the Steadicam. That was the first time I met him. And he was incredible with that Steadicam, you know. It was really incredible. physically, he's a tall guy and strong. And when he was approaching that institution actually where those girls were living, you know, and when he started to go up on the hill, nobody could follow him. He had some big steps, you know, and was climbing, you know, and everybody was behind him. They could not catch up with him, you know. When he got there, he only went to the door, you know, basically. So it was interesting to see him at work. And I fell in love with that Steadicam right in that movie. You know, I used it in the future afterward many, many times. In fact, you know, that since nobody could be again, no crew members could have been inside. The assistant camera had to be always behind the lens in order to focus on the scene. And the slasher himself could not be in a shot because we only saw his hand coming in with a knife, and Garrett had to do that himself. He was with one hand, he had the Steadicam, with the other hand he brought the knife in right from the border of the frame. Brian De Palma liked storyboard things. In those days, he wanted to make storyboards on the whole movie. He was basically drawing like stick figures, you know, just his sketches really are based on, it's like a shot list, so to speak. You can tell when he wants to have a long shot. You can tell he wants a medium shot and an over-the-shoulder shot or a single. So we can, I mean, all the collaborators can read his sketches as shot lists. And that's, you know, for me, it was very valuable. And I always knew, you know, what kind of a shot he wants to get size-wise. Of course, you know, that it didn't give you any reference of the lighting or something like that, but that was my job, actually, to do that. We got together and we were talking about the movie for weeks in prep time. And I knew exactly, you know, what kind of a style he wanted to have this movie.
As we all know, Liberty Day is one of the most eagerly awaited of all Philadelphia celebrations. But this year, it's going to be extra special. It is exactly 100 years since the Liberty Bell was last rung.
Basically, we decided that color-wise, since this movie was happening around this national celebration, so we decided that to use actually the colors of the American flag, red, white, and blue. And we tried to, you know, from the very beginning of the movie until the very end, you know, play with basically red and blue. White, of course, is not a color, but that's, you know, that's white and black. It's we don't call them colors, but of course, creating the mood in a color film is many times, you know, I like to turn it into a little bit of like a black and white movie. You know, because by desaturating the colors with the production designer together, you know, for me, the lighting is going to dominate the scene and not the colors. But the colors were there to help, you know, to the theme and the style. You know, in the early days in my career, I found out actually to desaturate the colors with a flashing technique. I was flashing the negative, which means actually that it will have a certain desaturation happening to the colors, and then you can actually, with lighting, you can maybe, you know, have the feeling of a black and white movie with colors. First time I used the flashing on McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and then even a 5% difference in the flashing will give you a different look. Flashing is done in the lab on a negative, And they used to do that before you expose on it. In Blowout, we had some incredible big night scenes. And in order to get exposure in the darkness, since the film was so slow, I needed to flash film at least 15%, sometimes even 20. And that gave me actually, with less lighting, actually more exposure in the background, especially when I needed, to have some details. And in those days, the film was not very fast. Maybe we had 50 ASA or maybe 100 ASA. And today we are working basically with 800 ASA. Brian De Palma loves to use the split diopter because he is basically likes to have focus in the foreground, focus in the mid-range, focus in the background. And he actually uses almost in all his movies the split diopter. And that way we can control the sharpness of the depth. Like somebody can be in the foreground. Like we had an owl in the foreground, and we can also see the forest in the background. Or we had the big bridge, the Visahikon bridge in the background, and a frog in the foreground. A small frog is in front of the lens, practically right next to the lens. And it was very funny, when we used to refer actually that shot is over the shoulder of the frog. So everything was in focus, and that was really fun to do that shot. But Brian loves to use that a lot of times, and I use it nowadays, many times. And even today we have a better way to do these shots actually with not a split line. There's no line in the split, but it gradually goes actually like a graduated filter. It gradually goes from the front of the lens until the distance on the other side of the frame, and everything is in focus. The sequence, when Travolta is analyzing basically the soundtrack with the images to find out, if there was a shot somewhere, a flare of a shot of a gun or something like that. So he actually cuts frames together, like we know that in film, we have 24 frames every second. So he's actually from a magazine which have a series of shots published, like it was in a movie. If you would be publishing, every single frame for I don't know how many seconds. So he cuts around actually certain areas and then plays it like you're projecting a film. He tries to basically do a sequence which is edited together. He makes us believe that this can be done, and of course in reality it would have never been able to do it. But the audience, they really are involved with the story, and they don't even think about if something is possible or not. It's possible if you can see it done, and that's it. That's all what the audience wants. It was a very interesting idea actually for doing this, because in a way, when we see Blowout, you never forget actually that this is also an homage actually for a movie which was called Blow Up, directed by Antonioni. And that was interesting then, by developing the pictures, and try to analyze those pictures, if there was a murderer somewhere behind the bushes or not. So this is added to the suspense for the movie tremendously. And then also interesting, but the whole movie, of course, was interesting that a sound man, basically, John Travolta, was recording sound actually for another movie, for that murder movie, basically, which was shown at the beginning of the movie. And just by analyzing the soundtrack, he wanted to find out if there was a gunshot or was not a gunshot.
Great.
So the analog was really terrific, you know, and this almost looked like a crazy man who is so involved with this, wants to find, you know, the answer for this thing. And I always like, you know, directors who can create a different world, you know, of something, you know, of an insane person, you know, thinking, you know, try to do something, you know. This was actually a small little place where Travolta actually has all his tapes and has all his research, you know, what he's doing, and all the soundtracks and everything. And when it's a total defeat, actually, to find out, you know, that what really happened, you know, in that accident sequence at the river. So we basically, in that case, we had to rotate the camera around. And we actually had a circular dolly track to do that. And we had to just push the dolly around, you know, so many times. And that was a tricky shot because in those days we didn't have batteries which would fit the camera and then didn't have to drag cables around it. We had to be plugged in somewhere, and in order to rotate the camera 2 or 5 times around, we had to basically lay down cables 360 degrees 5 times, all around the circle. So it was very, very difficult to do. It's not only because of that, but nobody could have been actually in the set except the actor. And the dolly man was pushing the dolly around, and the assistant cameraman who that had that focus. So all those people had to be going around with the camera 5 times.
Why don't you answer your phone? It's the police.
Who's been in here today?
Some guy, he said he wanted to
Who?
fix
What
the
guy?
machine.
What guy?
I don't think I like your tone of voice.
Yes.
What the hell is the matter with you?
What?
That fucking tape you gave me didn't have nothing on it.
All my tapes are blank.
The whole movie was shot in Philadelphia. It was a Philadelphia story, which was happening, you know, in a holiday, in a celebration, you know. There was actually a crowd, a big crowd, many times. You know, we had sometimes in the background like 500 people. And real people, not, of course, we could not afford, you know, to have extras, you know, that amount, but we had to use real people in many places. You know, the lighting about big night scenes, I had actually a terrific gaffer, Nick Martins, who worked with great cinematographers before, and was also a very helpful person who didn't want to push down on my throat his ideas, but he made my ideas better than I thought it was going to be, you know, possible to do. And he came up with many genius ideas, you know, how to light, you know, a big scene, you know, by just lighting a portion of what's there, and then but still have enough depth that you feel like the lights are coming from a street light, or it looked realistic. It didn't look like a movie light. So it looked realistic because maybe not overlit. But it was always something lit which was important. And I had a great time to work with him because he taught me certain things, which I never did before. Because he had all the tricks, what he learned, and I learned from him. And then, it's always nice, to be studying somebody else's work and use it. That's our job, basically, to do research, to see things, to do things, which was never done before. At least I didn't do before, and it works. We had this problem with a big shot, near the ending of the movie. During the celebration, the national celebration, a lot of fireworks is going on. And basically we wanted to create that all around us in the background is fireworks. Now, in order to do that really do the fireworks at 360 degrees would be impossible to do financially because it would require an incredible amount of fireworks and it would be very costly. So we came up with the idea, and I don't know whose idea was this, but I'm sure that it was somehow when we were talking about how to do this, somebody came up with the idea that if we build a set on a merry-go-round platform, and we put the lights and the actors on this rotating platform, and we can actually have just a certain size of a blue screen in the background, which exactly fits the frame. This platform actually was built on the set, and we had to light the blue screen, and we had to light the people on the rotating platform. That means that the people and the lights were rotating around. The camera was static, and then when we actually shot this with the camera, then it looked like the camera was rotating around them. And everywhere it was rotating, actually, you could put different fireworks. So we actually minimized the amount of fireworks that we needed to use. And it worked really very, very well. In post, actually, we only had to replace the green screen with the fireworks into one direction. But they actually had to put it in the film like the camera was basically rotating around. And interestingly, again, that Brian De Palma, by imitating certain directors, after so many years, people started to imitate Brian De Palma, basically, with the Brian De Palma movies, and not Hitchcock, or not other directors who use this kind of a technique and editing and craziness, what he sometimes comes up. And I love to see that, happening, that Brian De Palma is not an imitator anymore, but they imitate him. I did like to work with Brian, each time he wanted to have me, I was very happy to turn everything else down and then work with him because I knew that it's going to be an interesting experience. And, especially the latest film that we did together, Black Dahlia, was really, really very, 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 very useful for me because we had a good idea that we wanted to make it look like a black and white movie in color. Doing this black and white idea was possible because the digital intermediate idea came in vogue, in Hollywood. That means that we could actually alter the look of movies in post by going digitally into and desaturate the colors, which originally I did with flashing and sort of ruining the negative. We didn't have to ruin the negative here, but change it to make it better. And all we had to do just suck some colors out, take some colors out of the images, and then concentrate on lighting. Black Dahlia basically was an homage basically to the film noir style. And then since a film noir was really in black and white, and we, at the time of Black Dahlia, we had to shoot on color. And nobody wanted to make a movie in black and white. I mean, producers won't like to hear that. You know, so we had to come up with the answer to make a film noir movie in color. And then that's, you know, like very much what we did in Blowout, basically. So Blowout is a little bit more colorful. But Black Dahlia is already even got a little bit more away from that, and maybe went more into a black and white look. And that's the connection, basically, that we had between those two movies. 30 years apart, we visited the look, the style of Blowout, and made it even better.